Plagne high in the French Alps, the venue for the sliding sports for the 1992 Winter Olympic Games. On a beautiful sunny afternoon, we are here for round 5 of the Wiesmann FIBT Women's Bobsleigh World Cup. Track workers enjoying a little break, as are the kids already out of school here. Hello everybody, I'm Martin Haven, thanks for joining us. Alongside me, US brakeman Kurt Tomasevich. And Kurt, this track making its second World Cup appearance in most drivers' careers. Only the most experienced, like Sandra Kyriasis, will have raced on this before last year.
Yeah, you know, it really evens out the playing field because the experienced drivers don't necessarily have more trips down this track. All they have is their experience from other tracks.
Well, Kyriasis, 5th last year. She lies 4th after the first of our 2 heats. And the Swiss girl, Fabienne Meyer, she claimed a bronze medal here last year, but a disappointing run for her sees her only in 8th position. Alana Myers of the USA lies 3rd, but the standout drive from the US women was from Jamie Grubel. Never raced here before, she lies in 2nd spot.
Yeah, Jamie's got to be really excited with her finish so far.
Well, she needs to put in another great run to keep the pressure on our Olympic champion. 4 for 4 this season, Kaylee Humphries and Chelsea Valois. Chelsea has never finished even as low as 2nd in a bobsleigh race. Well, we have got 19 sleds going into our 2nd heat, 18 of them chasing Canada 1. Kaylee Humphries leads by 0.2 of a second, but look how close the gaps are. There are some very tight battles on our hands. We've even got a tie for 12th position with Kaylee's teammate Jen Cacchetti and Caroline Spani of Switzerland. Well, the sleds go in reverse order of their first heat performance. We go last to fast, which means that Belgium's Eva Willemark will be first out of the start shed, with new British driver Victoria Ole in 2nd in the running order, and 19th and last to go will be the one that they're all somehow going to try and overhaul, Kaylee Humphries. Unbeaten this season, she is now on something of an epic streak with 7 consecutive wins. Let's see if she can keep that alive. Piste est libre, the track is clear at the top of the ice for Eva Willemark and Wendy van Leuven. Now, last year, neither Belgium's women team, although they were here, was able to take part in the race. But due to a timing error from the coach, Janis Minens, they turned up an hour too late. So this is their first race on this track.
In the first heat, Eva and Wendy pushed a 6:75. You know, we talk about how much slower these push times are because of the flat track. 6:82, drop back 0.07 of a second, and that's really not going to help them move up anywhere.
Well, they had a really rocky ride first time down. She got out of sequence in the labyrinth and very nearly ended up using their helmets to straighten it up, but they did survive. Let's see if that's affected her nerves.
Yeah, she had a tough time in the labyrinth, like you mentioned. Her head was sticking way up out of the cowling. Just seemed to get, battled around like a ping pong.
Well, out of 6 and now into 7, 8, 9. Out of corner 10, makes it safely through, and then down to corner 12. This should be a quicker run because it's looking an awful lot tidier.
122 kilometers an hour, quite a bit slower than some of our best sleds from the first heat, but it's getting a little bit cooler now. The cloud cover is, maybe kept the temperature close to the same, but for the most part, when the sun goes down, the ice might get a little bit harder, even though it's a little choppier from the first run.
You saw a turn ahead there, shout brakes to the brake woman, because there's not an awful lot of room to spare at the end of this run. Once you pop over the brow, the train is coming through the station unless you got the brakes hard on. That's a much better slide. 1 minute 3.5, 4/10 quicker than her first run.
Yeah, not a lot of experience for Eva as a driver, and so with each run she just tries to improve. If you can improve 4/10 as you go down from each race heat, that's saying quite a bit. So she may be pretty pleased with the final result here.
Well, we always say better to have the rocky ride first trip and then tidy it up, but even there you see the head snapped around. There is Eva closest to us, raced in Whistler in the Olympic Games as a brake woman for her teammate. Well, next up, Victoria Ole made her World Cup debut in St. Moritz. That's her only World Cup race to date. That was last year. Now she's got Kelly Denyer on the back of the GB2 sled. Great Britain's women have taken a bronze medal in the Junior Worlds. Not a great hit. Kelly moving the sled before Victoria got away from the blocks. And again, that's unfamiliarity. This pair have not raced together before.
Yeah, the timing was off quite a bit. You know, we talked about, or in the first thing we talked about how Victoria really utilizes her arms as she takes her first couple steps into the push bar as a driver. And that might throw off their timing just a little bit, and it appeared to affect them there.
Well, a little slower on momentum through the first speed trap. Good run out of corner 6 is one of the key elements to this track. British sled 18th after the first heat, leading Belgium 2. The only sled to have come down so far by over a second now.
A little bit smoother run than what Eva had from the Belgium right before. But at the same time, again, these were the slowest 2 sleds from the first heat, so better sleds are to come yet.
Little rattle there down at the bottom part of the track. Now they start to climb uphill to the finish. This straight is vital. It's about the only straight on the track, and it's absolutely critical to stay off the walls. Little tap there as they get to the line. 103.43. Well, that's 0.3 of a second slower than their first heat curtain. I wonder whether, as the afternoon warms up, I mean, it's almost light jacket weather rather than heavy jacket weather. I wonder whether it's starting to soften the track a little and slow it down.
Yeah, it's hard for a team to predict what the weather's going to do, first of all, and especially when earlier in the week it was so cold. The drivers had different ice to prepare for.
You saw Vicky looking all the way through the corner, and that's the secret to driving anything fast. Look where you're going, and hopefully your machinery will follow your eyes.
Very low coming through the curve there.
Victoria Ole and Kelly Denyer lead the race for Great Britain. 17th after the first heat here in Plagne is Australia's Astrid Radjanovic and Fiona Harrison. Alternate brake woman holding the sled off the ice until the last possible moment. Kurt, the reason for that, you don't want the runners getting too cold and starting to stick to the track.
The warmer the runners, the more it's going to melt the ice just a little bit and cause a small film of water. That's just less friction. So the warmer the runners you can have, the better off. So they hold the sled off the ice as long as possible in order to keep them with the higher temperature as allowed.
Well, this is a rented Vimmer sled. It's only her second weekend ever driving this sled. And she said it's like going from an SUV to a sports car. It's so totally different to what she had before that everything she does has a totally different reaction.
Yeah, the BT sleds are known for being very narrow and very, very aerodynamic, but at the same time, that makes them hard to load into sometimes. And it's a different steering mechanism, so it takes a little while to get used to those new sleds.
Well, the steering here is absolutely as vital as it would be in any race car. If you're steering too much, it slows you down. If you're steering not enough, it slows you down because you tend to use your head to get down the track. 0.2 of a second up on the GB2 sled. And they were 0.4 up from the first heat. She's starting to find that now. 123.2, 76 miles an hour.
Very smooth run, and that's really showing how she's pulling away dramatically now, up to over 0.4 of a second. She's probably going to be over half a second ahead as she crosses the finish line here. Wow, 72 hundredths.
Well, that is a couple of hundredths quicker than her first heat, and we just saw the Great Britain sled come down 0.3 slower. If you wonder what the Serbian coaches and crew are doing helping her, well, of course, she's married to Serbian driver Vuk Radjanovic.
You can see their timing on the hit was much better than the British team. They hit the sled at exactly the same time, and if you're not hitting the sled at exactly the same time, one of your athletes is not only not pushing, but you're pulling the sled backwards too.
Sandra Kyriasis on the left in the blue bobble hat, watching the starts. Well, these girls have only been sliding together since the start of this season, but they've already got that rhythm at the top that GB2 sled lacks. There is Astrid Radjanovic. She leads the race at the moment. First job, though, to get the sled out of the way. Next up is Elfie Willemsen with Hannah Marion, track and field athlete from the Summer Games, joining the Belgian lineup. Elfie, the brakewoman in their 2010 Olympic campaign behind. She was rather the driver with Eva Willemark behind her.
Elfie's a pretty tall driver. And we talked about in the first heat how she's really kind of sticks her head a little bit higher out of the cowling than most drivers. And the lower a driver can be in that sled, that's just better for aerodynamics. But Elfie's just sticks her head just a little bit too tall, I think.
Well, the other thing, of course, that we noticed from their start was just how far they're running down to the first corner. And that's the same with everybody. It's such a long start area here. 2400s up on Astrid Radjenovic. That is less than her first heat advantage. She's starting to creep away a fraction now.
We talked about how these longer times on this track, the down times are well over a minute, how these times in between runners, between teams are spaced out just a little bit more. And that's why, she's going to be, again, over half a second ahead of the nearest competitor.
Over 4/10 in front. And a 102.6, and again, that's a slightly quicker slide than her first heat. So when we saw the first couple of sleds coming down and not matching first heat times, then that was just the vagaries of the driving, because Australia and now Belgium have both posted a faster time in this second heat. Again, of course, that might be to the vagaries of the driving as well, having a bad first heat.
Yeah, I'm not convinced quite that the track is getting faster. I think it's just because of these a little more inexperienced drivers. It's just making it a little bit harder to determine if the track is getting faster. You see the difference in height between the push athlete and the driver. That just means that the push athlete really had her hips low to the ground, driving just a little bit harder.
So the Belgians lead with 15 sleds to go. So already both Belgian sleds posting a better result here than they did last year. Next up, Anastasia Tamboseva of Russia. Now, she was 9th in last year's race, only 15th after the first heat here. That is not the sort of progress you would hope for when you've got an Olympic Games 14 months away. She slips as she tries to move.
Yeah, you can tell the driver's right foot slipped just a little bit as she took her first step. That first step is the most important step. Obviously you get your most power pushing off that block or off the ice on that very first one, but that's just going to hurt her quite a bit. 6:78 start time there. That's already 100 slower from her first heat start time.
She doesn't have the momentum that she had in the first heat either, and that start is going to follow her all the way down the track. She's in front of the Belgians, but that's not necessarily going to help her move up much.
Yeah, she's really looking to move ahead. There's, 4 or 5 sleds behind her, but the Russia program puts a lot of pressure with the 2014 Olympics coming up. So with that pressure on her, she needs to look forward and just try to go forward.
She's only a 1/10 of a second in front. She was only a 1/10 of a second in front in the first heat. The gap is coming down. This could be a big scalp for Belgium. If she doesn't keep it clean here, she might drop into second place. She still might be behind. Oh, 300s. They were thinking exactly the same thing, weren't they? That was Elfie on the left and Hannah on the right, and they very nearly overturned Russia too.
Yeah, at about the 27-second mark, her lead was up to 0.13 of a second, but she just kept losing that lead slowly across the finish line with only 0.03 of a second lead.
And they only outstarted Belgium by 100th of a second as well.
We talked about how that very first step is the most important. And right here, you can see her right foot slips straight backwards, and they lose just a lot of power. You rely on the brakeman now to get that sled out all by herself.
Well, the Belgians saw this coming right down to the wire at the finish, didn't they? How close? Very close indeed. There is Anastasia on the left, Margarita Ismailova, her brakewoman, on the right-hand side. Well, despite the 400-odd needle spikes, just occasionally you are reminded that this is highly polished sheet ice on which the sleds are starting. Next up, Esme Campus of the Netherlands. Didn't race here last year either. Willy Canis, her track cycling and mountain biking world champion teammate, on the back handles.
I think track cycling and bobsledding, at least from a push athlete standpoint, could be a natural transition, because track cycling is just straight power.
Yeah, again, we said this before, that the problem with a track cyclist is that their legs only go up and down. They don't extend in the same way that a sprinters do. So you have to re-educate your muscle the whole time, and that's going to take some time. I mean, clearly the will is there, but she's, you know, she will be suffering, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's just hard to cover a lot of ground with a short, choppy step like you'd use in cycling.
Yeah.
One thing that might hurt Esme here is at the very beginning, if you noticed, her push bar didn't come in until after she was around curve 1. You know, that first curve is very critical in order to keep the sled in the exact perfect line in order to keep your start velocity. If you lose that just a little bit, then you kill a lot of velocity. So she was smart enough to at least grab her D-rings, get around curve 1, and then release the push bar.
1900ths of a lead still over Russia 2. Is she going to end up in the lead? Little tap will bring it down maybe to single digits at the line, not quite. She stays in front. And again, you know, you look at the Russian program, okay, Anastasia Tambov-Seva is Russia 2, but she's stuck between Belgium and the Netherlands. Now, if she was jammed in between American, German and Canadian sleds, then she'd be in the right zone.
Yeah, a few years ago, you know, Esme was, you know, battling the top 6 almost every race. And, you know, now that she's made a little bit of a comeback, she's hoping to get there eventually, but just not right there yet.
A little bump sideways, and so that's why she was so keen to get her hand on those handles. The great thing here is that the wall does not come right in, as it would do at Winterberg last week, and that would have been dragging all the way along the ice.
Yeah, she had enough space between her sled and that left-hand wall to release that push bar, and as it came down, it wasn't a major factor, although it might have, that you know, the movement of that push bar, because it's on one side, might have caused a little bit of a driving disruption.
Well, the other thing, of course, is she has to take her hands off one of the controlling ropes, which means one goes slack while the other one is tight, so that has a bit of a steering effect as well. Next up for Switzerland, Caroline Spani, another of 3 in a row athletes now who have not raced on this track in the World Cup before. Yeah, start handle, you will be needing that. And people ask, what do coaches do? Well, they point out the blindingly obvious, just occasionally.
Yeah, a lot of times the teams get to the start line and they like to have a routine. You know, the driver, you know, takes off their shoe covers, they put up the push bar, things like that, and every once in a while you forget one of the little steps.
So 6:61 in the first heat, 6:60. That little momentary memory loss hasn't harmed her in the start.
Yes, 7th fastest start time in the first heat, and that's pretty good for Spani.
Well, that's very good to see the Swiss, you know, right up there with the faster times. She's way late in the middle of corner 6 and has to haul it off on the exit.
Yeah, she was only 0.03 of a second ahead of Esme coming into this heat. Now that lead is 0.05 of a second, so she's slowly pulling away, and that has to do with a pretty good start time.
And of course, she was tied with Jennifer Cacchetti of Canada, so we have a tie here. We had 3 sleds covered by 0.03 of a second, and at the moment, we've got 2 of them still covered by 0.03 of a second, but she's going to go further back. That little tap will guarantee that she loses more speed to the line. It'll be a 1/10 and more, 1:02.80. So she goes behind. The Dutch move up into potentially 12th place. If they can overhaul Jennifer Cacchetti, who had exactly the same time as Switzerland too.
And Caroline had a very good top half of the track. You know, pretty good start time and kept that velocity for the most part, but then that lead started to dwindle away and eventually disappeared, and now she's back by 0.12 of a second.
Well, interesting, tied with Jennifer Cacchetti. Caroline, 7th fastest starter, Jen, 6th fastest, so it was all lost in the drive.
Yeah, you can see she's a little bit early onto the curve there, and that causes the back end of the sled to kind of skid around out of control, not following the front end of the sled, and that follows all the way down. You know, a lot of people think that a bobsled ride is a nice, smooth ride, but you can see the brakeman's helmet just bouncing around now through that high-pressure curve, curve 16 right there.
Decent speed, not the fastest. Now, quick getaway for our Canada 2 sled, Jennifer Cacchetti and Emily Badsvik. Didn't race here as a driver in 2011's race.
6:60, just a hair behind their first heat start time.
Little brush in the first corner wall may not be helping them much either.
You can see their start velocity, 65.3 kilometers an hour. A good start time. You can compare that velocity now with the other sleds coming down after her.
Well, that was equal fastest through that first speed trap. And of course, you talked about mass moving mass. Part of what you're doing is trying to put all your energy into the sled as well as move it up to speed.
Yeah, there's a lot of physics involved with bobsled, and if you can put your mass as part of the sled's mass and combine them and create that extra momentum going down the track, that's only going to increase your velocity.
Still tied for the lead, a little tap there. That is going to be enough to put her behind, I think. She's got good speed at the bottom. Is it enough? Oh, my goodness. 300ths of a second in front of the Dutch after one heat, 300ths of a second in front of the Dutch after two heats. They set identical times in that second run.
Well, Esme had a great bottom half of the track. Jennifer had a great top half of the track and was able to hold that speed just long enough to cross the line in first place.
Wow. Wearing goggles like her former coach Pierre Luders taught her to. Same as Kaylee Humphries does.
Now you can see the wave as she drops really low in the belly of that curve and flies around. You know, that's kind of a speed killer, and it's just not the same speed that you know, the two other the Russians and the Belgians had before them.
Good top half, just enough to keep her in contention.
Yeah, you can see how she was really long on the end of that curve that sent her to the right wall. Caused her to bounce off that just a little bit. Kept the sled straight, which is a good thing, but those taps, just a little added friction.
Olga Stulneva of Russia with Yulia Timofeeva behind her. Olympic silver medalist in the 4x100 relay in the Athens Games as Olga Fedorova. She finished 6th here in last year's race. She's 11th after the first heat. This is not progress.
Yeah, but she's only 400ths behind Paula Walker in front of her and another 100th behind Jasmine Fenlater in front of her for a top 10 finish. So, you know, it's going to be close.
Yeah, the problem is she's half a second away from where she was last year's race. 65.1 kilometers an hour. Again, not great first speed trap momentum.
Well, 6:68 start time. You know, that's just you know, that's about the middle of the pack. You know, not the fastest, not quite the slowest, but they really need to improve their start times. The Russian program as a whole, in order to move up the ranks.
Yeah, two quite slight athletes. I mean, Olga, the driver, 5'9", but only 75 kilos, 165 pounds. So certainly not one of the heavyweights. She's got good speed at the bottom, as quick as anybody else. She was 10th in front after the first heat and comes to the line. A better part of 2 tenths in front, so that is a better drive than her first. 102.58, 1800 slower than her first run. So maybe it isn't that much better. Takes the lead from Jennifer Cacchetti, so I guess that is at least holding her position.
Yeah, with a better start time, you know, that's, you know, only going to put her in the mix a little bit better. You can see the start right here, how, you know, the athlete really drives her knees forward, launches into the sled and gets down as quickly as possible. You know, technically it looks great, but just athletically, the strength and speed and power just isn't there.
Well, there isn't the mass in these two athletes. So 10 of our 19 sleds are, 9 of our 19 sleds are down, 10 to come here in La Plagne. Stay with us for more right after this.
Petite pause dans cette compétition et pour info, sachez que c'est en direct sur certaines télévisions. Voilà pourquoi donc à 17 h nous faisons une petite pause puisque pour la télévision, ça s'appelle une pause de pub. Voilà, et nous allons prendre dans quelques minutes et vous voulez faire aussi une petite pause à la direction de Mirachès où nous nous retrouvons pour les enfants de la Plagne, l'école de la Plagne, tout le monde bien sûr, allez faire quand même ce bruit les enfants pour le spectacle de cet après-midi. Avant un bon week-end, les fêtes du bruit maximum, et je vous rappelle que le CDLS, le club de Bob Luge et Skeleton, propose sa buvette. N'hésitez pas, le stand, également la maison du tourisme pour différents documents pour un max d'informations, et notamment le Bobsleigh, Bob Experience. Dans une minute, reprise de la compétition dans une minute, et 1 minute. Clear the track, please. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Merci, dans une minute, reprise de la compétition. Get ready from Great Britain, Paula Walker and Gillian Cook.
3 Fotos hast du gesagt, ne? Klick, 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 klick.
Grande-Bretagne, Paula Walker and Gillian Cook.
Alles, was dir irgendwo angetan
They start 30 seconds.
ist jetzt nicht, weil es relativ schwer ist. Und dafür, dass es halt natürlich dein Manuell und das ist natürlich ganz schön schwer. Und ich denke, du kannst das
From Great Britain for Paula Walker and Gillian
Welcome back to snowy La Plagne, high in the French Alps. 10 sleds to go, heat 2 of the Women's Bobsleigh World Cup round 5. Paula Walker, Great Britain, and Jill Cook. Paula finished 10th in this race last year and lies 10th after the first heat this. Let's see if she can find some performance to move up the order.
Jillian really gave Paula a great push in the first heat, a 6:61, the 7th fastest in the heat.
Oh, late loads, do they avoid the wall? It looks like they do, 6:62. It's another good start from them.
With a good start, Paula went from a rank of 7th at the start down to 10th. So that just, that comes down to good driving. Paula didn't have it in the first heat. Seems to be putting together a decent run so far in the second heat.
Good first corner momentum, 65.4 kilometers an hour, quicker than anyone else. She is easing away from our race leader, Olga Stulneva. From 400s in front in the first heat, she's now 2/10 of a second in front.
Yeah, really putting together a great second run.
Well, she's had 2 top 6 finishes this year. She would love another one as an early Christmas present. Top speed is 1:23.7. It's as quick as anything we've seen. Still 2/10 up.
Yeah, she's, without any major mistakes here in curve 19, she's definitely going to hold that lead and finish the race in at least 10th position.
Tucks her head under the cowl and finishes 1:02.45, so guaranteed a top 10 finish. She would love to be 3 or 4 spots further up. Question is, it was so tight just in front of her, is that enough to move up? Well, Great Britain leading our race at the moment, 9 to come.
You see, Jillian, when she starts, it's a little bit different. She had her head looking up and almost at, almost straight down the track. Where most push athletes would like to look down, kind of at their knees and keep their hips curled up underneath them.
Well, Paula, a junior world champion. Jill Cook, a senior world champion with Nicky Minicello. So plenty of talent in that GB sled. There's your race leader. Next up, Jasmine Fenlater of the USA, 13th in this race, 2011. Jasmine, she's 9th here, just 100th the front of the GB sled. Lolo Jones on the back handles of this US sled.
6:55 start time in the first heat, and I think if Jasmine can hold on to 9th place or even move up, it's going to come down to this start time right here.
Again, Lolo Jones hurling herself into that sled. What a getaway. Well, there's only been 2 quicker starts in the entire field.
66 kilometers an hour is the start velocity. That's pretty decent. That's what you would expect from Lolo Jones. This is the track that she should do well on.
Such a long, fast start, though. Really running for miles here. And this is already a much tidier drive from Jasmine Fenlater.
Her lead peaked at 24 hundredths of a second, now down to 23 hundredths of a second. Now down to 19. This could be close as she gets down toward the bottom of the track.
Well, she doesn't have the speed at the bottom that the Brits did, half a kilometre an hour behind, but she stopped losing time. Could go out to a quarter second. No, little tap there, but she had a massive skid in the first heat, so she tidied that exit up nicely. Again, head under the cowl to take a quicker run, over 1/10 of a second quicker than her first heat, and into the lead of the race. So 27-year-old Jasmine Fenlater from Ewing, New Jersey, takes the lead with 8 sleds to go.
And with that run, she has a great chance of moving up into the top 8, even top 7.
Look at the way that Lolo Jones digs that ice out with those spikes, and watch how far she runs. And Kurt, how she hurls herself in.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to be running at top speed and then to jump into a sled moving at that same speed. It's one of those, you know, overlooked skills.
She was almost long jumping there, didn't she? She just left the sled alone, leapt in. Well, Paula Walker, Olga Stulneva and Anastasia Tambov-Seva with top speed. There's Lolo on the right, Jasmine on the left, your race leaders. Fabienne Meyer of Switzerland, third place in last year's race here in La Plagne. She lies 8th after the first heat. Well, bronze medal last year was a huge boost for Swiss women's bobsledding. She'll be doing unbelievable things with this sled to get into the top 3 this year. I think that's entirely unachievable.
Yeah, you know, with that bronze medal that she had last year, even though she's in 8th place right now, you know, that gave her a lot of confidence. She knows she can drive this track well. Really looking to move up.
Alternate brake woman Elizabeth Graf on the back handles. They still started 6.68. No Hannah Schenk this weekend. 6.70. Well, already giving away 1300ths of a second, beg your pardon, 2300ths to Jasmine Fenlater.
65.4 kilometers an hour. I believe Jasmine's start velocity was about 66. So she's, Fabienne has a little bit of driving to do to make up that difference.
Well, she's a quarter of a second behind. And of course, if you accelerate away from the line slower, it takes a while, no matter what your top speed is, to catch the faster accelerating machine.
Yeah, so you can tell she held that quarter of a second difference right now. So now you would expect that difference to slowly decrease, and Fabienne's slowly going to reel in Jasmine. We'll just see how close it is toward the bottom of the track.
2008 junior world champion. Closing a little, 1800ths. Is this straight from 18 to 19 that she gets through nice and cleanly? This could be down to single digits. Ooh, 500ths. Jasmine moves up. See the little teeth there under the sled, the brakes the brake woman uses. That's it, digging them into the ice for that final retardation. Great view there of the handles.
Wow, what a comeback from 1800ths of a second down at the last split to 500ths. You know, that's hard to do, and I think that can only be done on this track.
Well, here or St-Moritz, and maybe the aerodynamics of the Swiss sled really helping here.
You can see she minimized that wave that that Jasmine took earlier. Made it a little bit smoother between the two curves here. And I think that's where she gained a lot of bit of time.
The Swiss coach is not over thrilled with that one. Jasmine Fenlater, your race leader, USA 3. Next up, Anja Schneider-Heinze of Germany. 4th place here last year, currently lies 7th. Now, none of the 3 German sleds are in a medal position at the moment. There's your leaders, Jasmine Fenlater, Lolo Jones.
Anja's driving skill would probably be ranked 3rd of the German pilots compared to Kathleen Martini and Sandra Kiriasis. But what Anja really excels at is the start time. A 6:49 in the first heat, a 6:50 right here.
She's 2900ths up after the first heat over USA 3.
66 kilometers an hour start velocity. That was the same as the Americans.
She didn't start quite as quickly, so she's lost a little of that first advantage. Now she retains her lead, 2900ths up from the first heat.
Very smooth run.
Well, again, you look at the progress, compare her to Jasmine Fenlater. She's only narrowly ahead, like a couple of hundredths only on this run, and that shows how much Jasmine has progressed in the last 12 months.
Yeah, definitely. Jasmine last year, you know, she wasn't really happy with her placing. It was her first time here on this track. But, you know, Jasmine really put together a great second run. Still 46. In second position right now, so Jasmine will finish in at least 8th place.
4600ths in front for Anja Schneider-Heinze, and that was just 100th different from her first heat. So that's real consistency, and again, that's what comes with experience.
Yeah, that's not probably not what we're going to see from a lot of the drivers as they come down this track.
So Anja Schneider-Heinze, Franziska Bertels, her brake woman, are the race leaders.
You see the brake person really picks her heels up high off the ground. That's not something you want to do as compared to Lolo Jones that went before her, and how she kept her feet low to the ground, and that minimized the amount of air time that her feet were in the air. Where in track and field, you want air time. You want your feet to be on the ground as little as possible. It's the opposite for bobsled.
How tough is that got to be to relearn, to re-educate yourself over a few months? Kathleen Martini took the silver medal in last year's women's bobsleigh race here at La Plagne. She lies in 6th position after the first of 2 heats, with Stephanie Schneider behind her. And again, this is a second German sled that is not going to see the medals.
Kathleen's start time isn't as great as Anja Schneider-Heinz's start time is. That was a 6:50. This is a 6:66. So right away, she gives up 1600ths of a second. So Kathleen really has to drive the sled well.
And again, looking at Jasmine Fenlater in 2nd place, 2/10 slower than Fenlater at the start. You know, that shows that the German program needs some new blood coming into it.
Yeah, but they really have that driving skill, and they have their great equipment, great coaching. So that's still what makes them competitive and intimidating as well.
Good news for Germany is that their women took gold and silver in the Junior Worlds at Eagles in Innsbruck, Austria yesterday, so there is new blood on the way for after 2014. Whether it overhauls these girls before that is a bit of a moot point, I think. I don't think there's much chance of that happening.
I don't know if she's going to reel it in all the way. She was 2300ths of a second back at her farthest distance, now 1300ths of a second. Little tap there.
Tries to tuck a helmet on the straight just for those extra hundreds, and again out of the finishing corner. And so Anja Schneider-Heinz moves up at the expense of teammate Kathleen Martini. Germany 1 is at least ahead of Germany 3 in the overall score. It is Germany 2 that is their best placed sled, though.
You don't see Kathleen Martini make very many mistakes as a driver. This just didn't seem like a run from her. This kind of uncharacteristic. Try to keep her head low for aerodynamics coming through that straightaway, but you know, if you can't see where you're going, it's pointless, really. So she really needed to straighten that sled out and ensure that she was going straight before she ducked her head there.
Same here, comes out of the corner, not looking. She just knows that she's not going to crash on the steer. She's going to take the hits and try and steer as little as possible. Definitely not out of her top draw.
It was a gamble that just didn't pay off.
Next up, Austria's Christina Hengster with Inga Versen behind her. Christina, 26-year-old, reigning junior world champion. Well, she was the day before yesterday. Now she's the deposed junior world champion. There's your leaders. Anja Schneider-Heinz and Franziska Bertels on the left-hand side. Christina Hengster of Austria, 7th here last year, 5th after the first heat.
Now this was all drive and all equipment. Their start time last heat was a 6:71, ranked 15th, 6:69 in this heat. So not competitive at the start, but Christina's really driving well. Got great equipment that's getting her down the track fast.
Well, Christina, 4th in Lake Placid, her best result so far this season. Little tap there, you can't take too many of those, and another one. She was 1400s back already. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, 3400ths of a second, that's tough. She just didn't keep her start velocity, what start velocity she had.
Well, that shows that Anja Schneider-Heinz, Germany 1, not only had a decent second run, but really didn't get the most out of her first heat.
Still over 0.3 of a second back. Driving pretty well, but it's too little too late. There's nothing that she can do that's really going to save you at this point.
Oh my goodness, and that is the final nail in the coffin. She will go from 3rd place where she is now, maybe down to 6th at the line. No, unbelievably stays 3rd, but that's very disappointing. 7th last year, and she'll be 7th again this year. Well, that was 0.4 of a second, Kurt, worse than her first run.
Gets out of the sled, still seems to have a smile on her face, but you know, I'm not sure how exactly genuine that smile is.
Well, some people are genuinely smiley, and some people, you could put 5,000 volts from them and they wouldn't smile.
You can see she almost drags her toe as she's driving through those first few steps. That could be a good thing your first step or two, but eventually you have to pick your feet up and really get some good drive into the ice. Yeah, Yeah, just didn't have it this heat as she did the first heat with her driving.
Yeah. Too many mistakes, and that leaves the door wide open. Anja Schneider-Heinze leads. Can Anja overhaul Sandra Kyriasis? Well, the answer is yes. There was only 0.09 of a second difference between them in heat 1. Question is, can Sandra hold on? 4th place after our first heat. There's the driving handles. Being cheered on by the Aussies, who are their kind of surrogate teammates.
You kind of see Sandra when she loads into that sled, you know, she has gloves on, and that's it's very uncharacteristic for a driver to wear gloves. Some drivers just feel that loses some type of the connection that they have with the sled and with the ice, that extra layer between the two.
Well, for very different reasons, you'll never see a Formula 1 driver without gloves, and they're going an awful lot faster and need just as much sensitivity, but it's very personal, like the goggles deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's up to driver. It's just preference. If Sandra feels that she can still drive as great as she does, and she's putting together a great run. Well, now only back 0.17 of a second, so she's got great speed. 1/4 of a second back to 1/10 of a second. 1:25.0, fastest speed we've seen. Finally, the FES sleds are producing some high numbers. 400s. Yeah, she will more than likely take the lead here after this curve 19 straightaway.
Decent run on the straight.
19. Yep.
And that should be enough to put her in front by 0.03 of a second. Not much, but it's enough. Jawohl from Christoph Langen. Not the fastest run. That is still held by Anja Schneider-Heinze, but enough to hang on.
I mean, what a talent Sandra has. You know, her start time after the next few sleds come down isn't going to be even ranked in the top 10, but she can drive back and really pull that sled into contention. You see the brakeman here, how her toes point out just a little bit. That's not a great habit to have, but it's just kind of a natural preference.
Well, Berit Viaker on the back handles, top speed from the FES sled. She and Sandra Kyriasis have had so much success over the years. And they lead now with 3 to go. Top 3 sleds here in La Plagne. Alana Myers of the USA, the first of 2 US sleds in a medal-winning position after Heat 1. In fact, there are no European sleds in the top 3 after the first of our 2 heats here at La Plagne in France. That shows how strong North American sliding is right now. She has Katie Eberling behind her.
The first number you like to see when Alana's on that push bar is to see what kind of start time that they have. You know, that's been her footprint in every track that they've been on so far. A little skid in 6:36.
A new start record. She beats the start record held by Alana Myers and Katie Eberling from last year. So they take 400s out of their own start record. She means business. She wants the gold medal.
They really took that sled deep. Now, their start velocity was 66.2, which wasn't a whole lot greater than the other sleds, but 0.7 of a second lead right now. You know, she's going to have to make some major mistakes to not keep this type of lead.
Well, Alana Myers in 2010 was still a brake woman. And now
skid and bump there, but still over half a second.
1:23.2, good speed, but nothing like as good as we saw from the German sledder Sandra Kyriasis. So she's lost 0.2 of a second nearly to Sandra out of her advantage. Now she was 2400ths off gold in Heat 1. That's a good run, 1:02.2, only a little slower than her first heat.
Let's go, Jamie!
That was just straight start time. You can't say much more than that. That was a great push by Alana and Katie.
Well, you know, it takes time to be able to learn ice as well as Sandra Kyriasis has. It takes a decade, and she's got so much potential still.
Yeah, you can see both push athletes pushing that sled like brakemen. I mean, Alana is on the sits in the driver's seat, but in reality, she's more concerned about that push sometimes than she is about the drive down the track.
Well, her chin is almost on the start bar. Compared to some athletes who are absolutely bolt upright, she is almost bent at 90 degrees. It's great style, and that's a big bump coming into that corner 11-12, into corner 12 there, so watch out for that when you're in the 4-man tomorrow, on Sunday. Alana Myers, the race leader, with 2 to go. Well, and Here is Jamie Grubel and Emily Azevedo. This is the USA 2 sled. 29-year-old Jamie Grubel from Arlington, Massachusetts. The fastest American sled in Heat 1. Let's see if she can do that again.
Quite a few of the sleds have improved their start time since the first heat. Jamie and Emily, 6:48, improved their start time by 0.04 of a second too. That's pretty good.
Well, she was 4th fastest starter in the first heat. She'll be the 4th fastest starter in the second heat as well. 65.9 is good velocity as well.
You know, Jamie, this is the first time I think she's been in the top 3 after the first heat, so maybe she's feeling a little bit of pressure right now, but only 0.12 of a second back. She may be able to reel that in.
Well, she's had 2 4th place finishes, Park Sissy and Winterberg this season. She didn't race on this track last year. She is still in medal contention. She needs to be absolutely flawless at the bottom. She's tied at much better speed than Alana Myers. She is going to take the lead unless she wrecks it in 18 and 19. Wow. 800s in front. What a great second drive. Was she feeling nerves? I don't think too many. It's really flowing here at La Plagne, and she takes the lead by a 1/4 of a second.
You know, she felt that pressure and just let it release. That was a great way to handle it. That second run, you can't say much, couldn't say enough good things about it.
Wow, the Susan G. Komen sled leads for the USA, and Jamie Grubel is going to take her first World Cup career medal. Wow, what pressure from Alana Myers. A start record, and she's standing there watching her do it, and then she steps up and performs like that.
Yep, Emily and Jamie stepped up to the plate, performed. I don't think it could have performed any better.
Awesome speed at the bottom.
Wow.
Nobody quicker. And that, again, is testament to how smooth the drive was. You haul on those steering ropes, you scrub off speed. Wow, Jamie Grubel looks absolutely stoked, as so she should.
You know, the American program has really banked a lot on just their starts, but Jamie really proved that, you know, they're here to they're here to battle with the driving as well.
Final sled for the 5th time this season. Kaylee Humphries looking to win in women's bobsled. Chelsea Valois on the back handles behind her. And Kaylee Humphries won this race last year with Emily Badsvik behind her. 6.47 start, exactly the same as their first heat getaway.
0.2 of a second lead, you know, that can take some of the pressure off, but, you know, again, with the start time that Alana had, the drive and push that Jamie had, you know, maybe she's feeling just a little bit of pressure, but, you know, Kaylee can handle pressure.
Well, the start almost identical to Jamie Grubel's. The first speed trap identical to Jamie Grubel's. She's added 1/100th of a second so far on this run to her first round advantage. Of course, you could say, well, she's just cruising. She's just playing she's laying up. She's playing the short odds. She's not. She wants to crush them. She wants to win by a second in each heat.
Just as high speed.
125.0.
Yep, 125.
Well, she's not adding much to the run. She's just 500ths quicker on this run than Jamie Grubel, but nevertheless, she is going to be 5 for 5 this season. It's win number 5 of the year for the flawless Kaylee Humphries. 5 starts rather this season, 5 straight wins.
You know, at the beginning of the season, you know, every driver sets goals and, you know, makes up a wish list, and I don't know if winning every race was a logical and realistic goal on Kaylee's wish list, but you know, she's definitely putting together a season that, you know, you can't compare to anybody else's.
Well, we've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. When is Chelsea Valois going to have to retire so that she will complete a 100% career winning record? Because at the moment, started 5 ever, won 5. That are her stats.
Definitely getting spoiled. You know, I wish I could have come into the race and just won every one right off the bat.
Well, you know, you win your first race, you think, oh my goodness, what's happening here? Then you win your second, and then kind of it's just on a roll. They're just not stopping.
But you know, it's definitely no fluke. You know, Kaylee's a great driver, great starts, you know, great coaching. Stefan Bosch, you saw right there in the background.
Well, Kaylee Humphries won Whistler and Calgary at the end of last year. She won the World Championships in Lake Placid. She's now won 5 straight. That's the last 8 races. She has been undefeated. Last track she didn't win on was St. Moritz, where she was 4th out of the medals, and of course that's where we will end this season. And is it beyond the bounds of possibility that she'll go to the World Champs again, undefeated since the last one? Well, a great win for Kaylee Humphries and Chelsea Valois. Jamie Grubel and Emily Azevedo, quarter of a second back. A great run for USA 2, and Alana Myers, Katie Eberling completing the podium ahead of the top 3 German sleds, ranked up 4th, 5th and 6th behind them. Fantastic racing from Kaylee Humphries as she keeps her perfect record alive.
Dans 2 minutes, départ du prochain bloc, bloc de fermeture. In 2 minutes, the last Bobsleigh for today to close the track. Pour fermer la piste aujourd'hui, il y aura ce bloc dans 2 minutes. Merci. Dégagez la piste, s'il vous plaît. Merci. Clear the track, please. Thank you.
You have to wait.
La Plagne in France, World Cup number 5 for women's bobsleigh, win number 5 for Kaylee Humphries. What a season the Canadian Olympic champion is having. Well, after 5 races, as we head to Christmas, Kaylee Humphries leads comfortably from Sandra Kyriasis and Alana Myers. Jamie Grubel, what a season she's having. 5th place in the standings. The US girl has just claimed her first career medal. And next, after Christmas, we head to Altenburg in Germany, Eagles, and then rushing on towards the World Championships and the final event of the year at Sochi in Russia. Well, what a start, what a performance again from Kaylee Humphries and Chelsea Valois. Kurt Tomasevich, they've been unbeaten since we headed to Canada towards the end of last season. They've now won 8 straight. They must be feeling pretty confident with themselves.
Yeah, you mentioned it, 8 straight. That's pretty much a World Cup season with the summer break in the middle, of course. But you know, you can't say enough about it. It's everything is just clicking for Kaylee right now. There's only forward to look.
Yeah. Well, let's get down now to hear from our top 3. John Morgan is there.
The head of the La Plagne track, Jean-Marc Gossner, from the organizer committee, giving away the flowers here and for our World Cup Women's Bobsleigh race, number 5 of the season. And we go over here to the team Alana Myers and Katie. You guys set the track record at the start and the start record. Did you know you were that good at the start?
I know we had the start record coming in, and we worked really hard over the summer. Katie did an awesome job, so we were hoping to go faster, and I'm super glad we did.
Awesome, great bronze medal. Now over to Americans over here. Jamie Grubel, your first ever medal, and you got a veteran brakeman on the back here, but did you know you had two great runs?
I don't know. This is all kind of a blur for me. I know that they've felt really smooth, and the times were good, so I'm happy with both of them.
Congratulations on your first medal ever. You medaled before.
No.
No? Your first medal ever
Yeah.
for you too? Congratulations. Sorry about that. And this twosome here, 5 straight. I mean, how many times? 8 or 9 times we won a gold medal here in 2012. You can keep this going next year?
I hope so. That's the plan. We'll see. I really just take each race at a time. Chelsea and I just keep trying to get better as a team. At the starts, we got some heavy competition with the U.S., so we really just try and, take it one step at a time, each race at a time, and see what happens.
Congratulations. Quite a North American result here.
Exactly right, an all North American podium, and Katie Humphries undefeated since February this year. That's 10 months. All right, okay, 7 of them we weren't sliding, but that doesn't take anything out of her results. Well, my thanks to Kurt Tomasevich for joining us in the booth, and good luck in the race on Sunday when he'll be behind Stephen Holcomb. And thanks to you for joining us as well. Don't forget, we have got women's skeleton and the 2-man and 4-man bobsleigh races coming up over the rest of this La Plagne weekend. Join me for all the action. On behalf of everybody here, it's Martin Hayden saying goodbye. We'll see you next time out.